I want to thank everyone for joining us for this portion of the program where we'll be hearing from Leroy Moore and Emmitt Thrower, and then having some Q&A with our audience about the film Where is Hope, the Art of Murder. Before we begin this portion, I just want to do a quick land acknowledgement, and Repair would like to acknowledge the Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tavangar, the Los Angeles Basin and South Channel Islands. And we are grateful to have the opportunity to work for the Taraha Tome, the indigenous peoples in this place. We pay our respects to Hanukvatam, the ancestors, Ahihiram, elders, and Eohinkem, our relatives and relations, past, present, and emerging. And I also want to thank UCLA Disability Studies for co-hosting this program. So we welcome Emmitt Thrower and Leroy Moore, and I'm just going to share a little bit about each of them before we open it up for their comments and for audience questions. Emmitt Thrower is the filmmaker, producer, and director for the video promo for Dick Gregory's last book entitled Defining Moments in Black History, Reading Between the Lies, and he produced the multiple award-winning independent film documentary, which we just saw, Where is Hope, the Art of Murder. His most recent short films include Silent Sellers, about street vendors in NYC, his comedy Pigs in Bowl, the soap opera, and in 2021, he released his feature film documentary entitled Disability and Cultural Activism, featuring Leroy Moore, disabled San Francisco poet and activist and founder of Crip Hop Nation. This film explores the making of the CDN Police Brutality Against People with Disabilities mixtape, which was produced by Leroy Moore and DJ Quad. And I'm also delighted to introduce Leroy F. Moore, again, the founder of the Crip Hop Nation. Since the 90s, he's been a key member of Poor Magazine that started with the column Illin in Chillin for Poor Magazine, then on to a founding member of their Homefulness and Decolonize Academy, which is their school. He's one of the founding members of the National Black Disability Coalition and an activist around police brutality against people with disabilities. Leroy has started and helped start organizations like Disability Advocates of Minorities, Sins Invalid, and Crip Hop Nation. His cultural work includes the film documentary Where is Hope, his spoken word CDs, poetry books, and a children's book, Black Disabled Art History 101, which was published by Chip Kittle Justice Press. Leroy is one of the original creators of Poor Press of Poor Magazine that has published his books since the late 1990s, including his graphic novel, Crip Hop Graphic Novel Issue 1, Brown Disabled Young Woman Superhero Brings Disability Justice to Hip Hop, was published in 2019 and 2020 under Poor Press. He also wrote Black Disabled Ancestors, and he has traveled internationally networking with other disabled activists and artists. Moore has written, sung, and collaborated to do music videos on Black disabled men. So again, welcome, and glad to have some audience. Welcome for you as well to Emmitt and Leroy. And I wanted to set aside a little time now to hear from both of you about your work in making Where is Hope, the Art of Murder. And after that, we'll have time for our audience Q&A.
Emmy, you can go first.
Okay, Leroy. How are you, Leroy?
I'm good, okay.
Okay, well, the film, interestingly, was made, believe it or not, by accident. And what I mean by that is Leroy had called me and was telling me about the mixtape on police brutality against people with disabilities that him and DJ Quad were working on. And he told me he was making it because he wanted to bring more awareness to this national issue of police brutality against people with disabilities. The thing was, when he told me this, I was kind of in shock because I'm like, well, I haven't really seen any national news that showed an epidemic proportions of police brutality against people with disabilities on a national level. And I was like, well, maybe he has something to it, because when Leroy says something, he has done the research. So I suggested to Leroy that, well, maybe if you want to bring more awareness, a film to go along with the CD mixtape would be of help. And my whole premise for me was to find out more about this problem that I didn't know about. And if I didn't know about it, I'm sure there were many other people who didn't know about it. So I took on the challenge and we decided to do the film version. And once I started searching, and believe it or not, my search simply started on YouTube when I realized there were all these cases and video records of what was happening on a national level to people with disabilities being brutalized and murdered by the police, and yet they did not seem to appear in national news and certainly did not have the fact in general that these people were disabled. And so I realized then that there was a problem and that the film could bring awareness to more people about the issue. And so I decided to create the film also as a way to offer it to uh, organizations, activists, and other people to have forums to bring together different sides of the equation for new conversations on how to deal with this national issue. And so that was my motivation, among other things, for really getting really behind this and really want to see it happen.
Yeah, thank you. And for me, because I've been, in activists and activists since the '80s on police brutality, and never seen activists take up disability. Even today, I mean, even today, though we have a big movement, they haven't talked about and having the support of Poor Magazine and Misa, Idris Kelly Foundation. We just decided to really do it, and with hip hop, we wanted to make it a cultural kind of film using hip hop, using our words. So that's what we did. The thing is, and I really want to spend time on this, is the shock that me and Emmitt got when we got closed doors from a lot of activist groups, you know, and still like that today. And it's just a shame that for my family, I did a video on YouTube called Three Generations of Black Men. My granddad, my father, and we all fought against police brutality, and it's the same story. The three generations is the same story. So that's what's so upsetting to me about it, especially now as we get into a new year, a new presidency. It's the same story. You can change the president, you can change the face, but it's the same story. And the reason why it's the same story is that there's just no accountability to police. And also, I think we need to change our focus because as the three generations, we must realize that the police is not going to change, you know. So we need to change our focus to what the community needs and, building up the community, and bringing all those resources back to the community. So that's where I stand now.
That's really powerful. Thank you both. Audience, this is a great time to start adding any questions you'd like to ask Leroy or Emmitt in the chat. And I wanted to just ask if you two might reflect. The film was released before the murder of George Floyd and the protests last summer of 2020 and the introduction of the Breathe Act. I'm just wondering how that, how you would sort of add to that conversation now, meaning would it change any of the messages in the films? Like, would you still promote CIT training, or would you just want mental health interventions to be separated from the police? Like, you know, is your message essentially the same in 2021?
Well, actually, the reason why I really got into CIT, that's what they had available. And
Mhm.
as we see, it's not widespread and is not necessarily that effective. So I want to bring both sides of the issue. What they're offering and what they're not offering is for people with disabilities and the community to have direct input in how they deal with people in the community who are disabled and have confrontations with the police. So CIT to us was never the answer. Misha
Mhm.
talked about that in the film where they stole the money to buy guns and use it for other resources because then they never were serious about making that something that could really benefit the community. It's the same old thing they've been doing, and it's very limited effectiveness. And they don't want to deal with what what people with disabilities have to offer as alternatives that would be more effective. Because police officers with 40 hours training, trust me, are not qualified to handle disability issues in any way whatsoever.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great clarity. Thank you. Leroy, sorry.
if you look at it, that's why I love how Emmitt did the film, because it always go back to CIT. So it's like if you watch the film again, we go back to the same story. And the thing is, it's so interesting. Any other profession, we would fire or we would drastically, change the system. CIT's been in incidents since 1989. It's 2020, so it should be a joke when we
Mhm.
bring up CIT. We should laugh because it's been on the books since 1989.
Mhm.
It's I see it constantly. It comes back constantly. The media and the police pulls it out constantly. Matter of fact, the last thing I posted last night was the police in Connecticut thought that it's going statewide, it's going national too. That's why I don't understand why BLM can't handle real issues. But what's going nationally now is police registers. That means a mother and a father can bring down their disabled son to the police and say, can his name and profile be on the register? Are you serious? And that's what they call their new reform. It's like it's going national, and it's like where's BLM on it? Where is October 22nd on it? Where is anybody on this issue? Because it's really being pushed by wealthy white parents, the middle class white parents. So people think that this is a new reform, but in that same article, they mentioned that, and they mentioned crisis training. I was like, are you serious? This has been around since 1989. This is nothing new. So
Mhm.
once again, the police and the media brings us the same story when it comes to people with disabilities, with under police brutality. And what's so sad about it is that most of our activists, friends, and allies don't challenge it.
Mhm. Thank you both. One of our audience members, Dana, has thanked you both, and Leroy wanted to know if you would elaborate on what you'd mentioned about being shocked at what happens behind closed doors with activist groups. So the question again was,
Yeah,
he says you'd mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I've been an activist with police brutality since the 80s. So I've seen groups come and go, come and go, come and go. And what I see behind closed doors is like NBC or some kind of news. He told me when he was in Oakland, anyway, stay quiet around that disability stuff. Stay quiet. Most of your cases are Black males with mental health disabilities. So it's, that's what's going, behind closed doors, all the, hush hush around disability. And, I have to say, people don't like me, but I have to say it is that, another group that I was involved in, we reached out to BLM in the beginning to have them do disability justice teaching. We had one call and nothing. So it's not shocked that this kind of stories happen over and over again, especially people with disabilities. People with disabilities make up 70% of all police shootings. The number out there is 50, but I believe it's 70 because most of the reports only include mental health disabilities. So if you include autism and other disabilities, it goes up. So I say 70, most people say 50.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Emma, one of our audience members also wants to thank both of you for the movie and says, I particularly appreciated your portrayal of the stories of the emergent disabilities, like Lethia's, that arise from family members of these victims. Was it your intention to essentially tell that story in addition to telling the story of the tragedy of the murders themselves?
Well, actually, that's what happens when you do a documentary. You go in with a clean slate, and then what you discover is what I focus on. When I realized that these people who were impacted themselves and became disabled, because their loved ones were killed by police, then that became a focus of what I wanted to show, because I really never thought about that before. I'd really never heard about that before. So it became something that was discovered during the process of creating the film.
Thank you. That's really powerful. Audience members, if you have more questions, feel free to add those to the chat. And I want to ask both of you, can you just share a little bit about the response to the film? Do you feel like people are seeing it in the numbers that you hope? Can you identify ways that you feel like it's had a powerful impact?
Well, I think people who see the film, because many people have not really seen this level of what this problem is, and particularly through a film, because it's just not out there. So from the people who've seen it, and it's not nearly enough who have seen it, there still needs to be more awareness and more opportunities for this film to be presented, for people to see it, because our focus and what we hoped for was that there would be more forums, and the film was more or less be an opportunity to have a meeting with police, with politicians, with other community people, and sit down and have this discussion about the issue and possible ways that we can handle issue differently than what they've been doing that has not worked. So in one way, we're very happy we got the film done. In another, we still struggle to try and get it out there more, to get full use of the film so that it was meant to make change.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Leroy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the film is out. Me and Emmitt really, put it out with our energy and our, money and everything. So, like, although we got little or no support by the big movements, we did it with Poor Magazine and, our Just Study Foundation, and now it's out there, and it just did the cultural side of the film. So that's out there too, talking about the hip hop CD and stuff like that. So, it's out there for, educational institutions like this one, to show and to really question. So that's what makes me happy,
Yeah, I wanted to add, so through Canopy streaming service, I mean, a lot of colleges and people are seeing the film, so it is getting out there. But I would really love to see more events organized around the film, and that's one reason why the film was never about trying to make a profit or trying to do anything like that, but simply to address an issue. Then we will provide it to whoever wants to create a forum or event, to discuss issue. We would certainly assist that in making that happen.
Yeah, I've seen that before. You two have been incredibly generous with the communities who are willing to give the film some of the attention it deserves and really been sharing your time. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm sure a lot of other folks here are as well. One of the things that you've mentioned is the ways in which the effort to make the film has been kind of ignored by bigger social movements, and talking about kind of white parents creating their own agenda that really doesn't represent the experiences of Black folks, Indigenous folks, and other people of color with the police, and then also not finding the level of support that this issue needs to be getting from within some of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I know that I've heard Leroy speak before about, wrestling with ableism in Black communities. I guess I'd like to hear anything that you want to say about it, but also just want to ask, like, what's giving you hope? Where is your hope that movements will start to respond to this in the way that needs to be, even when you're not finding the solidarity and support that should be coming to you from within, disability communities and racial justice communities. What's made you feel strong enough to do this?
Well, I think one thing that gives me hope is that artists are behind this, and more artists with disabilities are getting more engaged in trying to create change. And artists, because they are the movers and the changers of society in many ways, that's what gives me hope. We created a second film, disability and cultural activism. For me, I created that particularly to show how this film was created, where it emanated from, using artists with disabilities to create the music and the poetry that was utilized, and to sort of, push this whole issue forward. And I think that is, hopefully they are more empowered to take it upon themselves to be more active with their artistry. And I think that's the hope for me, that will help bring about change.
That's beautiful. Leroy, any thoughts on this question? What's helping you find the strength? What's giving you hope?
Yeah, the foundation that has been laid when I was younger, being, seeing Black disabled blues singers, seeing Porgy from Porgy and Bess on TV when I was younger, that formed a foundation, a strong foundation for me, so, that foundation, my family, all the work that we do, that's reaching people, outside of academia, outside of large Ford Foundation kind of activism, that's what's giving me hope in, future projects that Quip Hop has in mind. We want to have a Quip Hop Institute, with, just seeing Black and brown disabled, artists doing their thing in one building. We don't have that. We have Black museums that don't know that, that Black disabled people make up history. I went into the DC wonderful Black museum, and there's not one thing on disability.
Mhm.
So it's really, making that foundation, right here, and that's what keeps me going.
Thank you so much. There's one more question I noted in the chat from someone asking, what are immediate solutions that you think would help, if anything would, in communication between law enforcement and the community, in order to stop these, thoroughly avoidable killings?
Well,
So is there anything that you think would help with communication, basically?
Well, like I said, we have to change the focus.
Mm-hmm.
We always focus what the police need. I don't care what the police need anymore. I care what the community needs. So the community. So can you imagine if we take away all that training and all that stuff with the police and place it in the community? So our next door neighbor knows, about disability, knows about autism.
Mm-hmm.
All the services. I mean, mental health has been cut every year in every city for the last 20 years. Can you imagine all that resources going back to mental health department? That's what we need. We can, for me, I'm done talking to the police. I've done that. I've been on boards. I've done that. Now it's time to focus on the community. And now with Fred Hampton's new movie that just came out, we need to look at that and we need to really think about, what he was saying and really say, it's 2020 and we need to really go back to, what he was doing because, being a part of, the the democratic system and having big foundations to put up a piece of money for movements that won't rock the boat. That's not getting us anywhere, especially families. So.
Yeah, I think solution-wise, the solutions are out there. They're in the community. The problem is that the police does not want real community input into what they're doing. They want to decide how to address issues, and they don't want to be controlled in any way. They don't want to be held accountable by the community. And until you change that, the solutions that they come up with are going to be the same solutions we have been seeing that are not effective because they do not engage the real community who's being impacted because of politics. They don't allow it, and because it's a power force. That's what the police is. And until the community can have a real input into how they address issues, nothing to me is going to change. And the solutions are through the community because people want to do things that could have some impact. They just can't do them because they're not supported by the politicians nor the police departments.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I want to say before we call the police. We've been in this workshop since the late 90s. And I think, I know that this workshop should go national, because this is what we need. We talk about funding the police, but we need to talk about, really, if we want to talk about the police, we need to talk about, having something in place that looks like us, that's from our community. I think that's one reason why the never does good in transition periods, and we saw that under Reagan, when Reagan just shut down institutions, but never had a plan where people can have a community home. So we don't want to fall back in saying, okay, we need to defund the police, but not having a plan on where that funding to go. And I think Poor Magazine has that model that people should look at.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm going to be sure to put the reference for Poor Magazine in the chat. Leroy, someone messaged me to ask, would you mind repeating the name of the film that you had mentioned earlier? I think the connection was cutting out a little bit. Just a little while ago, you said with the new film?
Talking about disability.
Oh,
yeah.
What was the title of it?
Yeah, the title is Disability and Cultural Activism. I'm going to send you a link that I created, because the film was just released this year, and we have it on the site dedicated to that film, and I'm going to send you the link so people will be able to see the behind the scenes, the artists engaged, and it sort of chronicles Leroy's effort in trying to get the CD made, which obviously led to the film, but that behind the scenes, what he was going through as a cultural activist, trying to put that together. So I'm going to make that available to you, Beth, so that you can send it out to people so they can visit and see that film. And
I would love to, and we would love to host it. If you want to screen it with us, we would absolutely be honored to.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. We would love that.
Okay, terrific. For the Zoom audience, I've also put the address for Poor Magazine, which Leroy has referenced multiple times in the chat. And for anyone watching the recording, that's www.poormagazine.org, P-O-O-R. Leroy and Emmitt, is there any way that folks who are here and have the means, or anybody who's watching the recording later, can contribute to your work by donating? Is there organizations that people should be giving to if they think this film is important and want to keep promoting similar things? Or just any organizations you believe in? Is there a way to donate to Crip Hop Nation or to Poor Magazine or the National Black Disability Coalition? Anything that you think would be good?
Yes, I mean, I think Poor Magazine, which was also part of helping to me create with Leroy, the Where Is Hope, would be a good organization to donate to, because they really spend a lot of effort and time into looking to the alternative ways that we can avoid calling the police and getting our loved ones killed. And they've been doing this for years. Lisa's been doing this forever. And I think the more you support organizations like that, the more opportunity we have to really create a force for change around something, a completely different way of addressing the issues we're dealing with. So I would say Poor Magazine, and Leroy, you would know exactly how they could contribute to Poor Magazine.
Yeah, so we have Poor Magazine, go on their website. Oh, you have it in the chat.
I did put it on their chat. There is a donation link from the website, so folks can donate there.
And with Crip Hop, just be on the lookout for this Crip Hop Institute. We're gonna try to buy a building here in Berkeley, so we're gonna have a really big push when that happens.
That's amazing. I'm excited to see that. And I will add the Crip Hop Facebook site into the chat for our Zoom audience in case folks would like to connect, and anybody watching the recording, you can Google Crip Hop Worldwide on Facebook, and you should be able to find and follow what's going on there. Thanks to both of you so much. I really think the film is inexpressibly powerful. I felt like the stories that it brought to the surface were pretty incredible, and I'm just so grateful for your work, and I think that you're very gifted, and I'm glad that so many of us get to benefit from those gifts. And thanks for the insight and time that you brought to our audiences today, and hope to see you again soon, both of you.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting.
Good, glad to see you, Emmitt.
Yeah, Leroy.
See you later.
Yeah, we've done so much stuff together. Actually, just as a little extra, if you go on YouTube and do a search, you'll find some music videos that me and Leroy did together on some incredible issues, and with his poetry and music, along with Keith Jones, who did a lot of music. So you can find a lot of stuff from artists, including me, Leroy, and Keith Jones, who are all in the film.
Thank you so much again, both of you. All righty.